Hello all, welcome back to our course on digital accessibility, and today we will have a special focus discussion regarding special use case of neurodivergence and neurodivergent users, and what are the specific barriers and challenges that they face, and how we can enable access to digital and ICT technologies to them as much as possible. So, before we dive into the challenges and barriers, let us first try to understand what is the meaning of neurodivergence and what is the relevance of it in today's day and age. So, first aspect is, were you even aware that over 15%, so almost 15 to 20% of the global population is demonstrating some form of neurodivergence, which means that it is a very big chunk of the population. So, that is a significant segment of the society which makes up people who are neurodivergent, reminding us that it is a dire need of the hour, and that there is a plethora and a wide array of unique ways people experience and perceive and connect with the digital world. So, let us try to understand what is neurodivergence and what is the meaning and what kind of aspects come under neurodivergence. So, neurodivergence is a non-medical term used to describe individuals whose brains process information or learn or behave in ways that are different from what is considered typical, right, or neurotypical by the society. So, under this category there can be learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, Tourette syndrome, Down syndrome, Williams syndrome, I am sure you might have heard about. OCD is something which is a term which is casually thrown around, that I have OCD because I like cleaning a lot. Dyslexia is, I am sure all of you might have seen that movie Tare Zameen Pe, where dyslexia was kind of portrayed with a lot of sensitivity, and children with dyslexia, how difficult it is for them to match the speed of your typical way of learning or typical way of pedagogy or instruction. It can be autism, ADHD, which is attention deficit, or ADD disorder, or it can be dysgraphia, where people face challenges to understand or decipher graphics. Dyscalculia is where people face difficulty in learning or understanding mathematics. Dyslexia is reading or language related disability. Dyspraxia is where people face difficulty in speaking or understanding spoken language. So, basically what we are saying, that the word neurodivergence is really an umbrella term that highlights all of these neurological differences as natural variations of a human brain rather than deficits or disorders, right. So, these are just variations of human brain. We are not saying any of it to be which was a commonly thrown around word called retardation. None of it is actually that, and now it is being recognized globally, including India under the RPWD Act. All of these aspects are recognized as learning disabilities or neurodivergence related disabilities, and it is not a disease, it is not something which is curable. So, basically we are looking at enabling access, right. So, here this is where our roles as designers, engineers and innovators comes into being, as to how we can enable access to people facing all of these deficits or disorders, or variations of human brain access the same information with the same amount of efficacy as a typical human brain. So, then let us look at some key concepts, particularly in the domain of terminology, just so that we are sensitive towards using the terms carefully and not throwing them around casually. So, the first is the neurodiversity, which we just read about. So, neurodiversity is the overarching concept that variations in human brain function are natural and normal. They are just like differences in ethnicity or personality, right. Then comes the next concept of neurodivergence. An individual whose specific neurological function diverges from the societal norm. Atypical neurological function can be brought under the category of neurodivergent individual. So, neurodiversity is a concept, is a common term, while neurodivergent is an individual, right. And then there is neurotypical. Neurotypical is also an individual. Neurotypical is an individual whose brain function and development are considered as standard or typical within the society's expectations. So, I hope these terms are pretty clear in their meaning and their usage. So, let us now try to understand the difference between these two, because these two are again individuals, right. Neurodiversity encompasses both of these, neurodivergence, the divergent individuals as well as neurotypical, and then the concept of neurodiversity says that there can be variations in human brain functions and all of it is natural. So, let us try to understand the difference between a neurotypical individual and a neurodivergent individual. So, a neurotypical individual are those whose brain functions, processes and behaves in alignment with typical development milestones and who cultivate organizational and interpersonal skills at the same rate. Rate is something which is very important, because many a times we have seen that even neurodivergent individuals are able to eventually kind of learn and navigate their ways using interpersonal skills, but their rate of learning those interpersonal skills or societal skills may be a little bit different. Individuals who process information atypically for their age, right, again here is also what the rate we were talking about. So, when we say for example that a 3-year-old should be able to recognize alphabets from A to Z, that is a typical standard of learning pedagogy, and if the individual is unable to recognize all of the different 26 alphabets by the age 3, we are not saying that they are dumb. They are just expressing a different or neurodivergent form of development, which is atypical for their age. Neurodivergent individuals' brain function differently, not incorrectly, this is very important, compared to most peers. So, what has really happened and why do we even have this discussion about neurotypical or what is called a typical function? Because as per statistics, we did see that around 15 to 20% individuals demonstrate some sort of neurodivergence, but still the 80% or 85% are demonstrating typical behavior. So, in terms of developing organizational or learning pedagogies or frameworks for society to function, for organizations to function, for learning to function, most of the pedagogies and frameworks have been again till recently been framed or coined for people with typical behaviors, and for the longest time people with neurodivergent behaviors were considered that they have something wrong with their brains, and they were being treated badly in different ways. But luckily now the research as well as the society as well as the policy makers are aligned with the idea that brain functions are just typical or different. There is no correct or incorrect way of doing anything. Some more perspective in the same terminology. So, for example, there is a person with ADHD, there is a person with autism, there is a person with OCD, and there is a person with dyslexia. Each of these people are neurodivergent. This person is neurotypical. These people are each neurodivergent, but individually they are not neurodiverse. So, since we are talking about a group of people all with ADHD, individually they are neurodivergent, but as a group, this group is not neurodiverse. This group is neurodiverse. This is, if we talk about this group is neurodiverse because we are talking about different types of divergence. If there is a person with multiple such divergences, then that kind of a person is called multiply neurodivergent. Only groups of people can be described as neurodiverse. Individuals are not neurodiverse but can be neurodivergent. So, this terminology again is very important, particularly when you are writing reports, particularly when you are making PPTs, you are even searching, right. So, basically prompts, these terminologies are very important. So, as we discussed, neurodiversity kind of encompasses all of these facets and all of these disorders and limitations, and you can go back to your search engine and you can search about each of these neurodiversity related barriers individually as well. So, for example, some people with cerebral palsy also have limited motor skills sometimes if it is a severe form of CP. People with dyslexia find it difficult to read or write, particularly language. And similarly, each one of them will have their own limitations. For individual definitions and limitations, you can also refer to the RPWD Act document, which talks about what is legally the meaning of each of these limitations. And because when we particularly talking about compliance, we have to be aware of what is the legal definition of each of these divergences. So, it is important that you understand about each of these definitions, and particularly from a legal, audit or compliance perspective. So, you can go through this document as well, and you can individually do a search engine exploration at your end. All of these aspects come under neurodivergence, but let us also try to understand what are the challenges and strengths of people who are neurodivergent. So, they do face difficulties with social interactions or communications. They may face sensory overload in certain environments. They may struggle with executive functions like organization and time management. there is need for clear routine and difficulty. They face difficulty with sudden changes. However, they have some very interesting strengths. So, it has been found, and this has been statistically laid out, that they are very creative and innovative thinkers. So, you may be surprised, but there are a lot of very famous innovators who have dyslexia. So, Elon Musk is one popular such person, I am sure you are aware. Then Steve Jobs, actors Abhishek Bachchan had dyslexia, and it has been over the years come to statistical relevance that they have demonstrated extraordinary creative and innovative thinking capacity. They can have high levels of concentration or hyper focus in their areas of interest, right. So, they may be getting sensory overload in certain environments, but they can do hyper focus and high levels of concentration, particularly in things in which they are interested, and they can work on it for several hours, which can be difficult for a neurotypical person sometimes. They can have strong attention to detail and accuracy, and they have unique problem solving abilities, and they have a big picture perspective many a times, because they are also not, we have seen that many a times, bogged by the constraints and the systems of the typical world, which can fuel innovation many a times. So, now let us try to talk about accessibility issues pertaining to neurodivergence. Accessibility issues primarily comprise of sensory overload, complex information. They may be struggle with flashing content. So, here we are talking about again for digital interactions primarily. So, as you saw in the previous slide, they have social anxiety, and many a times these are some common challenges, but we will see how it pans out, particularly in the form of digital interaction. So, they may have struggles with flashing content, jargons, because jargons are very context dependent and very socially aware, which may not be the case with atypical thinking. Unpredictable layouts, strict time limits or confusing forms, requiring clear language, visual aids, customization, etc., so that to make it accessible, both the physical and the digital accessibility. So, let us kind of dive deeper into these aspects. So, what are the common barriers pertaining to accessibility when we are looking at it from the perspective of neurodivergence? So, first is, as we discussed, sensory overload. So, what accounts for sensory overload? So, it can be bright colors, too many bright colors placed on the same screen, flashing animations which are not even accessible to muting or pausing, autoplay videos or audio, too many sounds at once, busy environments, cluttered spaces, cluttered desktops, cluttered screens. All of those can be a little bit overwhelming and overloading the sensory systems of people with neurodivergence. Cognitive and information processing related barriers. So, maybe large blocks of text is difficult to read, particularly for people with dyslexia. So, maybe you can you use some spaces in between, use simple languages, use dyslexia friendly fonts, all of those aspects. Complex sentences, again jargons, unusual words, unpredictable or inconsistent navigation and layouts, difficulty with visual tracking, attention or working memory, executive function and focus. So, any decision making related aspects where users have limited times to check an OTP on a different platform and enter it in some other web page, for instance, or forms where you have to fill it in a given time, distractions from moving or flickering content. If it is you have ads on both sides of the screen like this, or on top of the screen with ads flashing and all of those things, then it becomes really difficult for people with who are neurodivergent. Difficulty in remembering passwords or instructions and icons. So, if you notice, a lot of these aspects also have appeared in our special focus on elderly users. So, what we are basically trying to understand with each of these special focus sessions is that many a times inclusive thought process not just enables access to any one special target user group, but also expands it to other special use cases as well. So, particularly this is helpful when you are, say, pitching a project in your company or pitching a product to a venture capitalist, or you are writing for a research grant. So, because they always ask about what is the impact of this work? What is the projected impact? What is the projected or expected target user base? The moment you are able to understand that if this is the challenge faced by people with neurodivergence, while this is also a challenge faced by people who are elderly. So, whenever I am solving this particular problem, say strict time limits, I am solving it not just for neurodivergent users, but also for elderly users. So, then we can say, okay, 15% of the population has neurodivergence, 20% of the population falls into the category of elderly. Together, my work or my solution is going to impact 35% of the global population. Now, we are looking at billions of people, right? So, then that is actually the scale of the impact that your work can translate into. So, it is important to understand individual aspects of all of these special use cases, but also think about how we can actually not just solve for one, but solve for many when we are looking at it from an inclusive design perspective. Coming to the last of common barriers, so communication and interaction. There may be complex forms, there may be multi-stage processes where there are, you complete one, you go to next, then you complete one, you are supposed to remember some chunks of information from the previous one, or unclear feedback system or error correction mechanisms are there in the portal or on the app, then it becomes very difficult. Unreliable chatbots or live support. So, this is something I think we all can agree which is there in a lot of use cases, that there is a chatbot, it says how can I help you, but the moment you ask a typical question, they are not able to help you really, right? Or they are not able to help you with step by step detailed kind of an assistance. So, it is usually not fulfilling its purpose. So, when we are talking about accessibility for neurodivergent users, we are also saying that accessibility for neurodivergent users benefits everyone. One aspect we did discuss, that if we are talking about specific challenges, and we have also seen those specific challenges with another group of users like elderly, then we can always expand our target user group by adding, just plainly adding that other particular group. But we are also saying that accessibility for neurodivergent users not just benefits them, but also everyone, because here again our concept of situational or temporary disability comes into picture, because the cognitive overload, for example, or sensory overload part, if we think about, they may be people who are neurodivergent who are facing those issues at all times, but there may be people who are tired, they have not had a good sleep, and situationally they are unable to concentrate on a given information, and hence they are facing a situational disability, or they may be a temporary disability where they are on some particular medicine which is not allowing them to think clearly, they may be sleepy all the time, all of those aspects can be there. So, while WCAG guidelines are designed to support individuals with particular disability, including those who identify as neurodivergent, they ultimately benefit all users. So, let us take some examples. So, for example, a clear navigation, consistent layouts makes it easier for everyone to find the relevant information, not just people who are neurodivergent. Readable text, it will help you, of course, people with dyslexia, but high contrast text and simple fonts improve readability for all users and not just dyslexia. Similarly, flexible timers, so adjustable time limits can not only reduce stress for people with ADHD, but also for anyone who needs extra time to complete the task. And there can be multiple reasons for it. There can be, as we said, situational limitations, right, that so I for once can give my own example. Whenever I am trying to do some important task, either your phone rings or your kid comes rushing to you with some major issue of their own, and you can leave for a bit, do their work, and then come back and complete the form. So, let us get started designing for neurodiversity. So, here are some actionable steps to make your digital assets more inclusive for ND users. So, first is please simplify your layouts, avoid clutter, use clear, consistent navigation, high contrast, use text stands, ensure that your text stands out against the background colors. So, this will not only help people with neurodivergence, it will also help people with who are elderly, who have low vision, or who have just concentration issues, which are situational. Provide text alternatives, so offer text transcripts for audio content or captions for videos. So, this is also useful for people who are hard of hearing. Test with neurodivergent users, so engage individuals who identify as neurodivergent to test the usability of your website. Educate your team. I think this is very important, that we also need to not just learn and make ourselves aware about these special use cases and what are the challenges that they face, but also expand and disseminate that knowledge or sensitize your own team about those special use cases and how involving or including their challenges and their needs can not just enhance profitability for their company, but would also increase the impact of the kind of work that they are trying to do. So, as again WCAG particularly for navigation and text and contrast, we have already seen that they have some best practices in place. So, particularly say for example, for audio control, auto playing can be distracting and overwhelming. So, WCAG requires that users have the ability to pause, stop or control the audio, and this is the criteria which you can refer to. Timing adjustability. Time limits can create unnecessary stress for users, particularly those with ADHD or dyslexia. So, WCAG recommends that website owners allow users to change or extend time limits. Pause, stop or hide. So, moving or blinking, primarily ads can be very distracting. So, WCAG conformant experience give users the option to pause, stop or hide those pages after 5 seconds. On input, so many neurodivergent users benefit from predictability, and WCAG states that changes on a website should not occur automatically when a user inputs data. For example, selecting a checkbox shouldn't trigger an unexpected action like submitting a form. Consistency in navigation. So, consistency helps user understand, find where the key elements like menu, search bar or links will be there. This is particularly useful for people with autism. Then consistent identification. So, buttons etc. should look the same on each page if it is meaning the same, if it has the same semantic functionality associated with it. So, this is a resource which you can refer to in order to. So, there are several blogs. One is of course the WCAG owned blog on digital accessibility and neurodiversity. Please feel free to go through it in order to educate yourself more about accessibility for neurodivergence. And you can of course search some more about neurodivergence, learn about individual aspects and individual disorders, what kind of limitations they are facing. Then this is one of the books which I had recommended in the initial weeks as well. It's called Inclusive Design for a Digital World. Please feel free to buy this book, and this covers a lot of aspects of digital design, and it also has a chapter on neurodiversity and accessibility. So, thank you all for joining today's session. I will see you all in the next session.